Chapter 4, Momentum. I'd like to introduce you to a very good friend of mine. This friend, also close to Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, Richard Branson, Michael Jordan, Lance Armstrong, Michael Phelps, and every other superachiever, will impact your life like no other. I'd like to introduce you to Mo, or Big Mo as I like to call it. Big Mo, without a doubt, is one of the most powerful and enigmatic forces of success. You can't see or feel Mo, but you know when you've got it. You can't count on Mo showing up to every occasion, but when it does, wow, Big Mo can catapult you into the stratosphere of success. And once you've got Mo on your side, there's almost no way anyone can catch you. I'm excited about this chapter. When you implement the ideas outlined ahead, your payoff will be 1,000 times or more what you paid for this book. Seriously, these ideas are big. Harnessing the power of Big Mo. If you remember your high school physics class, you do, don't you? You'll recall Newton's first law, also known as the law of inertia. Objects at rest tend to stay at rest unless acted on by an outside force. Objects in motion tend to stay in motion unless something stops their momentum. Put another way, couch potatoes tend to stay couch potatoes. Achievers, people who get into a successful rhythm, continue busting their butts and end up achieving more and more. It's not easy to build momentum, but once you do, look out. Do you remember playing on the merry-go-round when you were a kid? A bunch of your friends piled on, weighing the thing down, and then chanted as you worked to get the thing moving. Getting started was slow going. The first step was always the hardest, getting it to move from a standstill. You had to push and pull, grimace and groan, and throw your entire body into the effort. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. It seemed like you were getting nowhere. After a long and hard effort, finally, you were able to get up a little bit of speed and start running alongside it. Even though you were moving and your friends were cheering louder, to get the speed you really wanted, you had to keep running faster and faster, pulling it behind you as you ran with all your might. Finally, success. You jumped on and joined your friends in the joy of feeling the wind in your face and watching the outside world turn into a smear of colors. After a while, when the merry-go-round started to slow down, you'd hop off and run alongside for a minute, get the speed back up, or you could simply give it a couple of good pushes and then hop back on. Once the merry-go-round was spinning at a good clip, momentum took over, making it easy to keep it going. Adopting any change is the same way. You get started by taking one small step, one action at a time. Progress is slow. But once a newly formed habit has kicked in, Big Mo joins the party. Your success and results compound rapidly. The same thing happens when a rocket ship launches. The space shuttle uses more fuel during the first few minutes of flight than it does the entire rest of the trip. Why is that? Because it has to break free of the pull of gravity. Once it does, it can glide into orbit. So for you, what's the hard part? Getting off the ground. Your old ways and your old conditioning are just like the inertia of the merry-go-round or the pull of gravity. Everything just wants to stay at rest or stay the same. You'll need a lot of energy to break your inertia and get your new enterprise underway. But once you get momentum, you will be hard to stop, virtually unbeatable, even though you're now just putting out considerably less effort while receiving greater results. Have you ever wondered why successful people tend to get more successful? The rich get richer, the happy get happier, and the lucky get luckier. They've got Mo. When it rains, it pours. But momentum can work on both sides of the equation. It can work for you or against you. Since the compound effect is always working, negative habits, when left unchecked, can build up steam and send you into a tailspin of quote-unquote unlucky circumstances and consequences. That's what our friend Brad from Chapter 1 experienced. He gained 33 pounds with a few small bad habits and experienced major job and marriage stress because of the negative momentum those habits generated. The law of inertia says objects at rest tend to stay at rest. That's the compound effect working against you. The more time you spend on that couch watching 2.5 Men, the harder it will be for you to get up and get moving. So let's start right now. How do you get Big Mo to pay you a visit? You build up to it. You get in the groove, the zone, by doing things we've covered so far. 1. Making new choices based on your goals and core values. 2. Putting those choices to work through positive behaviors. 3. Repeating those healthy actions long enough to establish new habits. 4. Building routines and rhythms into your daily disciplines. 5. Staying consistent over a long enough period of time. Then, bang, Big Mo kicks in your door, and that's a good thing. And you're virtually unstoppable. Think about swimmer Michael Phelps, who won a legendary 8 gold medals at the 2008 Summer Olympics in Beijing. How did he do it? Working with his coach, Bob Bowman, Phelps honed his talents over the course of 12 years. Together, they built routines and rhythms and developed a consistency of performance that prepared Phelps to catch momentum just at the right time, the Olympic Games. Phelps and Bowman's symbiotic relationship is legendary for its scope and ambition, and its utter predictability. Bowman required such consistency when it came to practice that one of Phelps' most vivid memories is when Bowman allowed him to finish a training session 15 minutes early so he could get ready for a middle school dance. That's one time in 12 years. No wonder Phelps was so unbeatable in the pool. Chances are you have an iPod. Ever think about the evolution that made it possible for that little gizmo to wind up in your pocket? Apple was around a long time before they launched the iPod. While Mac computers have always had an intensely loyal following, they still comprise only a small fraction of the overall PC market. The iPod certainly wasn't the first MP3 player out there. Actually, Apple was late to the game. But they had something powerful going for them: the consistency of their efforts in maintaining customer loyalty, a steadfast commitment to high quality, innovative design, and ease of use. They made the MP3 player simple, cool, easy to use, and to play with, and promoted it through entertaining and inventive ad campaigns. It worked. It hit a nerve. But the iPod wasn't an overnight success like a lot of people assume. In 2001, the year Apple released the iPod, they went from 30% revenue growth the year previous to negative 33%. The following year, 2002, was also a negative revenue growth at negative 2%. But 2003, they saw a slight shift to the positive with 18%. Growth came again in 2004, up 33%, and in 2005, they caught Mo, and bang! Apple catapulted to 68% revenue growth and now holds more than 70% of the MP3 player market share. As you know, Big Mo has since helped them dominate the smartphone market with the iPhone and the digital music distribution market with iTunes. This momentum has also given them a resurgence of growth in their original market of personal computers. With Big Mo on their side, I wouldn't be surprised to see them expand into other markets. Google was a small, struggling search engine for a long while. Today, it too owns more than 60% of its market. YouTube, the video sharing space created in February of 2005, officially launched in November of that year. But it wasn't until they featured the Lazy Sunday digital short that originally aired on Saturday Night Live that people started going to YouTube in huge numbers to find it. That YouTube video clip went viral. It got more than 5 million views before NBC asked to have it taken down. Then there was no way to catch him. They had Mo. Today, YouTube owns more than 60% of the video market. Google caught up with YouTube and the two young founders and paid them $1.65 billion to buy their Mo. Wow. So, what do Michael Phelps, Apple, Google, and YouTube have in common? They were doing the same things before and after they achieved momentum. Their habits, disciplines, routines, and their consistency were the keys that unlocked momentum for each, and they became unstoppable when Big Mo showed up to their party. Routine power. Some of our best intentions fail because we don't have a system of execution. When it comes down to it, your new attitudes and behaviors must be incorporated into your monthly, weekly, and daily routines to affect any real and positive change. A routine is something you do every day without fail, so that eventually, like brushing your teeth or putting on your seatbelt, you do it without conscious thought. Similar to our discussion in the habits section, if you look at anything that you do successfully, you'll see that you've probably developed a routine for it. These routines ease life stresses by making our actions automatic and effective. To reach new goals and develop new habits, it's necessary to create new routines to support your objectives. The greater the challenge, the more rigorous our routines need to be. Ever wonder why they make military boot camp so hard, where relatively minor tasks like making the bed, shining your shoes, or standing at attention become over-the-top important? Building routines to prep soldiers for combat is the most effective way to elicit efficient, productive, and reliable performance under intense pressure. The seemingly simplistic routines built and developed during basic training are so exact that soft, fearful, slovenly teenagers are transformed into lean, confident, mission-driven soldiers in only 8 to 12 weeks. Their routines are so well rehearsed that these young soldiers can instinctively act with precision in the middle of the chaos of combat. That intense level of training and practice prepares soldiers to carry out their duties, even under the threat of imminent death. Now, your days might not be as dangerous, but without the proper routines built into your schedule, the results of your life can be unruly and unnecessarily hard. Developing a routine of predictable, daily disciplines prepares you to be victorious on the battlefield of life. Golfer Jack Nicklaus was famous for his pre-shot routine. He was religious about the dance that he would do before every shot, a series of routine mental and physical steps that got him fully focused and ready for each shot. Jack would start out behind the ball, then pick out one or two intermediate spots between the ball and the target. As he walked around and approached the ball, the first thing that he would do is line his club face up with the intermediate target. He wouldn't put his feet into position until he felt that he had his club face properly squared up. Then he would take his stance. From there, he would waggle the club, look out to his ultimate target, then back to his intermediate target and back to the golf club, and repeat that view a couple of times. Then and only then would he strike the ball. During one of the important majors, a psychologist timed Nicklaus from the moment he pulled the club out of the bag until the moment he hit the ball. Guess what? Each shot, from the first tee to the 18th green, the timing of Jack's routine supposedly never varied more than 1 second. That is amazing. The same psychologist measured Greg Norman during his unfortunate collapse at the 1996 Masters. Lo and behold, his pre-shot routine got faster and faster as the round progressed. Varying his routine stunted his rhythm and consistency, and he was never able to catch momentum. The moment Norman changed his routine, his performance became unpredictable and his results erratic. Football kickers likewise cherish their pre-kick routines, which allow them to get into sync with the thousands of times they have done the same action. Without a pre-kick routine, their performance under game time pressure greatly diminishes. Pilots go through their pre-flight checklist. Even when a pilot has logged thousands of hours and the plane just came in from a perfect performance review from a previous destination, the pilot goes through a pre-flight checklist every time without fail. This not only prepares the plane, but more importantly, centers the pilot and prepares him or her for the upcoming performance. Of all the high achievers and business owners I've worked with, I've seen that along with good habits, each has developed routines for accomplishing necessary daily disciplines. It's the only way any of us can predictably regulate our behavior. There simply isn't any way around it. A daily routine built on good habits and discipline separates the most successful amongst us from everyone else. A routine is exceptionally powerful. To create powerful and effective routines, you must first decide what behaviors and habits you want to implement. Take a moment to review your goals from Chapter 3, as well as the behaviors you want to add and subtract. Now it's your turn to be Jack Nicklaus and figure out your best pre-shot routine. Be intentional about what components belong. Once you establish, say, a morning routine, I want you to consider it cast in concrete until further notice. You get up, you do it, no argument. If someone or something interrupts you, start back at the beginning to anchor your foundation for the performance that follows. Bookend your days. The key to becoming world-class in your endeavors is to build your performance around world-class routines. It can be difficult, even futile, to predict or control what will show up in the middle of your workday, but you can always control how your day starts and ends. I have routines for both. I'll share aspects of each here to give you some ideas and to help you better understand the power and importance of building your new behaviors into disciplined routines. Starting with my goals in mind, I design my behaviors and routines accordingly. Perhaps in sharing some of what works for me, you'll identify strategies you'd like to try. Rise and shine. My morning routine is my Jack Nicklaus pre-shot preparation. It sets me up for the entire day. Because it happens every morning, it's locked in and I don't have to think about it. My iPhone alarm goes off at 5 a.m. Well, confession, sometimes 5:30 a.m. And I hit the snooze button. Then I know I have 8 minutes. Why 8? I have no idea. Ask Steve Jobs. He programmed it. During those 8 minutes, I do 3 things. First, I think of all the things that I'm grateful for. I know that I need to attune my mind to abundance. The world looks, acts, and responds to you very differently when you start your day with a feeling and orientation of gratitude for that which you already have. Second, I do something that sounds a bit odd. I send love to someone. The way to get love is to give love, and the one thing I want more of is love. I give love by thinking of one person, anyone. It could be a friend, a relative, a coworker, or even just somebody I met in the supermarket. It really doesn't matter. And then I send love to them by imagining all the things that I wish and hope for them. Some would call this a blessing or a prayer. I call it a mental love letter. Third, I think about my number one goal and decide which 3 things I'm going to do on this day to move closer to reaching it. For example, at the time of this recording, my number one goal is to deepen the love and intimacy in my marriage. So each morning I plan out 3 things that I can do to make sure that my wife feels loved, respected, and beautiful. Now when I get up, I put on a pot of coffee, and while it's brewing, I do a series of stretches for about 10 minutes. This is something I picked up from Dr. Oz. If you've lifted weights your whole life as I have, you get stiff. I realized that the only way I was going to incorporate more stretching into my life was to make it a routine. I had to figure out where in my schedule I could possibly fit this in, and while the coffee is brewing is as good a time as any. Once I finish my stretches and pour my cup of joe, I sit down in my comfy leather recliner, set my iPhone for 30 minutes, no more, no less, and read something positive and instructional. When the alarm sounds, I take my most important project and work on it for an hour of completely focused and undistracted effort. Notice that I haven't opened up my email yet. Then every morning at 7 a.m., I have what I call my calibration appointment, a reoccurring appointment set in my calendar, where I take 15 minutes to calibrate my day. This is where I brush over my top 3 1-year and 5-year goals, my key quarterly objectives, and my top goal for the week and month. Then, here's the most important part of the calibration appointment. I review or set my top 3 MVPs, that is, most valuable priorities, for that day. I ask myself, if I only did 3 things today, what are the actions that will produce the greatest results moving me closer to my big goals? Then and only then do I open up email and send out a flurry of tasks and delegations to get the rest of my team started on their day. And then I quickly close down my email and go to work on my MVPs. Now, the rest of the day can take on a million different shapes, but as long as I go through my morning routine, a majority of my key disciplines that I need to be practicing are already taken care of, and I'm already properly grounded and prepared to perform at a much higher level than if I started out each day erratically, or worse, with a set of bad habits. Sweet dreams. In the evening, I like to do what's called cash out, something I learned from waiting tables in my youth. Before we could go home, we had to cash out, meaning turn in all our receipts, credit card slips, and the cash. Everything had to add up or there was big trouble. It too is important to cash out your day's performance. Compared to your plan for the day, how did it go? What do you need to carry over to tomorrow's plan? What else needs to be added based on what showed up throughout the day? What's no longer important and needs to be scratched out? Additionally, I like to log in my journal any new ideas, ahas, or insights that I picked up throughout the day. This is how I've collected more than 40 journals of incredible ideas, insights, and strategies. Finally, I like to read at least 10 pages of an inspirational book before I go to sleep. I know the mind continues to process the last information consumed before bedtime, so I want to focus my attention on something constructive and helpful in making progress with my goals and ambitions. So, that's it. All hell could break loose throughout the day, but because I control the bookends, I know I'm always going to start and finish strong. Shake it up. Every so often, I like to interrupt my routines. Otherwise, life gets stale and I plateau. An easy example is working out with weights. When I work out the same way, at the same time, doing the same repetitive movements week after week, my body stops showing the compounded results. I get bored, lose my passion, and Big Mo is a no-show. That's why it's important to mix it up. Challenge yourself in new ways and freshen up your experience. Right now, I'm working on adding more adventure into my life. I set weekly, monthly, and yearly goals to do something I wouldn't normally do. Now, most of the time, it's nothing earth-shattering, but things such as eating different kinds of food, taking a class, visiting a new destination, or joining a club to meet new people. This change of pace makes me feel alive, helps recapture my passion, and offers me opportunities for fresh perspectives. So, look at your routines. If something that used to energize you has become the same old, or is no longer generating powerful results, switch it up. Getting into a rhythm, finding your new groove. Once your daily disciplines have become a routine, you want the succession of those steps to create a rhythm. When your disciplines and actions jibe into a regular weekly, monthly, quarterly, and yearly rhythm, it's like laying a big welcome mat at the front door for Big Mo. Here's an analogy. It's like the big giant wheels of a steam locomotive. At a standstill, it takes very little to keep it from moving forward. A 1-inch block of wood placed under the front wheel will do the job. It takes an incredible amount of steam to get the pistons to move that cause a series of connections to get the big giant wheels to just budge. It's a slow process, but once the train starts rolling, the wheels get into a rhythm. If the pressure remains consistent, the train gains momentum, and then, watch out. At 55 miles an hour, that same train can crash through a 5-foot steel-reinforced concrete wall and keep on going. Envisioning your success as an unstoppable locomotive may help you stay enthusiastic about getting into your rhythm. Along with my daily rhythms, I also plan ahead. For instance, in looking again at my goal of deepening the love and intimacy of my marriage, I designed a weekly, monthly, and quarterly rhythm schedule. I know it doesn't sound too romantic, but maybe you've noticed even when something's a high priority for you, if it isn't scheduled on your calendar, it often doesn't happen, right? Certainly not with the regularity you'll need to get into any kind of rhythm. So here's how it works. Every Friday night is date night, and Georgia and I go out or do something special together. At 6 p.m., an alarm goes off on both our iPhones, and no matter what we're doing, date night is on. Every Saturday is FD, Family Day, which means no working. Essentially, sundown on Friday night until sunup on Sunday morning is time we devote to the marriage and family. If you don't create these boundaries, one day has a tendency to flow into the next. Unfortunately, the people who get shoved aside are often the most important. Now, every Sunday night, also at 6 p.m., we have our RR, Relationship Review. This is a practice I picked up from relationship experts Linda and Richard Iyer. During this time, we discuss the previous week's wins, losses, as well as the adjustments we need to make in our relationship. We start the conversation by telling each other a few things we appreciate about the other during the previous week. It's helpful to start off with the good stuff. Then, using an idea I picked up from my interview with Jack Canfield, we ask each other, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the best, how would you rate our relationship this week? This really gets the discussion of wins and losses flowing. Oh boy. Then we discuss the adjustments that need to be made through this follow-up question. What would it take to make the experience a 10? By the end of the discussion, both of us feel heard and validated, and we've made our observations and wishes clear moving into the next week. This is an incredible process. I highly recommend it if you dare. Now, every month, Georgia and I schedule something unique and memorable. Jim Rohn taught me this. Life is simply a collection of experiences. Our goal should be to increase the frequency and intensity of good experiences. Once a month, we try to do something that creates an experience that has some memorable intensity. It could be driving up to the mountains or going on an adventurous hike or driving up to LA to try a new fancy restaurant out or going sailing in the bay, whatever. Something out of the ordinary that has a heightened experience and creates an indelible memory. And once a quarter, we plan a 2 or 3 day getaway. I like to do a quarterly review of all my goals and life patterns, and this is a great time to do a deeper check-in on how things are going in our relationship. Then we have our special travel vacation, plus our holiday traditions and our New Year's hike and goal-setting ritual. You can see that once all of this is scheduled, you no longer have to think about what you need to be doing. Everything happens naturally. We've created a rhythm that gives us momentum. Allow me to jump off the script again here and share something Harvey McKay told me about marriage. He said, "I learned the day I got married that anyone can fall in love. It takes no talent whatsoever to fall in love. But to remain in love is a real challenge. And you have to make that priority 1, 2, and 3 in your life." On the topic of creating a great marriage, one of the great models for my life was my mentor Paul J. Meyer and his wife Jane. The best way to explain this is a letter I received not too long ago from a man named David in Buckley, Washington. David wrote how he had been at a friend's house and was asked to make a beer run, but his car was blocked in, so he borrowed a friend's car. When he got in the car, the Success CD was playing with the interview between Paul J. Meyer and me back from our June issue of 2008. He thought it was the radio, so he just let it play. In the interview, I was asking Paul how he's kept such an amazing magic in his marriage of 37 years. Paul was explaining how he has sent Jane flowers every week for 37 years, and how he purposefully and intentionally has treated her the same every day as he did during courtship. He never stopped courting her. Every day of their marriage, Paul said he found reasons to tell her he loved her at least 10 times, every day. I knew Paul and Jane personally, and I can attest to this. While Dave was driving, listening to this interview, for some reason, at that time, in that moment, those words penetrated Dave's heart. That evening, he sat down with his wife and said, "I realized I've been wrapped up in myself, not giving you the attention, respect, reverence, and love you deserve. I'd like to renew my commitment to you tonight, to be the man I promised to be when we first got married. I love you, Katie. I always have. But now I promise to tell you and show you every day." Dave wrote that his wife, Katie, burst into tears and couldn't speak for several minutes. When she finally calmed down, she said, "I have been living with a broken heart for many months now. I didn't think you loved me anymore, and the pain became too much. 2 days earlier, I met with an attorney to file for divorce. I was planning to tell you tomorrow morning." Dave said, "That CD saved my marriage. It saved my life. Paul Meyer's example showed me how I could be in my marriage. The past year has been the best of my life. We've never been more in love and never happier together. Thank you." The lesson here is it doesn't take very much to completely turn around your marriage, and it doesn't take very much to neglect or destroy it and create lots of pain around you. Stay focused and consistent on the little things every day that make for magic in your marriage and magic in the results of every area of your life. If you stay focused on the small, smart choices, the compound effect of them is profound. Registering your rhythm. I want to share with you something I created for myself that helps me keep track of the rhythm of a new behavior. I call it the Rhythm Register, and I think you'll find it extremely helpful for you too. If you want to drink more water or take more steps each day or acknowledge your spouse more affectionately, whatever behavior you've decided you need to move towards your goal, you'll want to track it to see the evidence and to make sure that you're firing on all cylinders and establishing a rhythm. You can download a copy of that document for free at thecompoundeffect.com/free. The rhythms of life. When people get started in any new endeavor, they almost always overdo it. Of course, I want you to feel excited about setting up a rhythm for success, but you need to find a program that you can absolutely, positively do in the long term without renegotiation. I don't want you thinking of the rhythms you can do for this week, month, or even the next 90 days. I want you to think about what you can do for the rest of your life. The compound effect, the positive results you want to experience in your life, will be the result of smart choices and actions repeated consistently over time. You win when you take the right steps day in and day out, but you set yourself up for failure by doing too much too soon. A friend to the success team, who will remain unnamed to protect the guilty, decided after seeing a picture I'd posted of him on Twitter that he was going to get in shape. This was a massive shift of lifestyle for him. On the job, he sits for at least a dozen hours a day, and he hates to exercise. Previously, he explained that he would find ways of avoiding using certain dishes or accessing files if it required him to squat and bend down to get them. That's how much of an aversion he had to physical activity. Still, he made a resolution to get in shape. He joined a gym, hired a personal trainer, and began working out 2 hours a day, 5 days a week. Richard, let's call him. I said, "That's a mistake. You will not be able to maintain that commitment and will eventually stop doing it. You're setting yourself up for failure." He pushed back, assuring me that he changed forever. Even his trainer had recommended the intense push. "I'm committed," he said. "I want to be able to see my abs." "Richard, what's your real goal?" I asked him. I knew that he wasn't gunning to be on the cover of Men's Fitness. "I want to be trim. I want to be healthy," he told me. "Why?" I asked. "I want vitality. I want to be here long enough to see my kids have kids," he replied. These were his real, meaningful motivations. Richard wanted to be in it for the long haul. That meant he was signing on not for bikini season, but for a long-term commitment to fitness. "Okay," I said. "You've convinced me, but you're overdoing it. You're going to get 2 or 3 months down the road and you're going to say, 'I don't have 2 hours to work out, so I guess I can't do it today.' That's going to happen to you over and over again. Working out 5 days a week will turn into 2 or 3, then you'll get discouraged. Soon it will be over. I know you're really fired up right now, so let's do this. Do your 2 hours a day, 5 days a week for now. It takes a lot of steam to get the wheels to budge from inertia, remember? But don't do it any longer than 60 or 90 days. Then I want you to scale it down to an hour or an hour and 15. You can still do your 5 days a week if you have to, but I would probably encourage you to go to 4. Do that another 60 to 90 days. Then I want you to consider an hour a day for a minimum of 3 days a week, 4 if you're feeling extra spry. That's the program I want you to work towards, because if you don't get into something you can maintain, you won't do it at all. I really had to struggle to get Richard to comprehend this, because at the moment he was all gung-ho. He thought he was going to be able to stick with this new routine for a lifetime. For someone who's never worked out, to start working out 2 hours a day, 5 days a week is a surefire dead end. You have to build a program that you can do for 50 years, not 5 weeks or 5 months. It's okay if you go strong for a while, but you've got to be able to see the light at the end of the tunnel so that you can start scaling back. You can always find 45 minutes to an hour a few times a week, but to find 2 hours, 5 days a week to make your routine work, that'll never happen. Remember, consistency, that's the critical component of success. The power of consistency. I mentioned at the beginning of this book that if there's one discipline that gives me the competitive advantage, it's my ability to be consistent. Nothing kills Big Mo quicker and with more certainty than a lack of consistency. Even good, passionate, and ambitious people with good intentions can fall short when it comes to consistency. But it's a powerful tool that you can use to launch the flight towards your goals. Think of it like this comparison. If you and I flew planes from Los Angeles to Manhattan, but you took off and had to land in every state in between, while I flew straight through, even if you went 500 miles an hour while you were in the air and I only traveled at a rate of 200 miles an hour, I'd still beat you by a big margin. The time and energy it takes for you to repeatedly stop and start and get back to momentum makes your trip at least 10 times as long. In fact, most likely you wouldn't even make it. You'd run out of fuel, energy, motivation, belief, will at some point. It's far easier and requires a lot less energy to take off once and just maintain a regular speed, even if it's slower than most everyone else all along the way. The pump well. When you start thinking about slacking off on your routines and rhythms, consider the massive cost of inconsistency. It's not the loss of the single action that you're not doing or the tiny results that it creates. It's the utter collapse and loss of momentum your entire progress will suffer. Think of a hand-pumped water well, which uses a pipe to draw water from the water table several hundred feet underground. To get the water to the surface, you have to pump the well's lever to create suction that brings the water above ground and out the spout. When most people start a new endeavor, they grab the lever and start pumping really hard. Just as Richard was with his plan to get fit, they're excited and committed. They pump and pump and pump and pump, and after a few minutes or a few weeks, when they don't see any water or results, they give up pumping the lever altogether. They don't realize how long it takes to create the vacuum needed to suck the water up the pipe and eventually out the spout and into their bucket. Just like the merry-go-round, rocket ship, or steam engine breaking free of inertia, it takes time, massive energy, and consistency to pump water. While most people give up, wise people continue to pump. Those who persevere and continue to pump the lever will eventually get a few drops of water. This is when a lot of people say, "You've got to be kidding me. All this pumping for what? A few measly drops? Forget it." Many people throw their hands up in defeat and quit, but wise people persist further. And here's where the magic happens. If you continue to pump, it doesn't take long before you'll get a full and steady stream of water. You have your success. Now the water is flowing. You no longer need to pump the lever as hard or as quickly. It becomes easy, actually. All you have to do to keep the pressure steady is to just pump the lever consistently. That's the compound effect. Now, what happens if you let go of the lever for too long? The water falls back into the ground and you're back to square one. If you try to pump the lever easily and steadily like you were, you won't get any water. Mo is gone. Water is at the bottom. The only way to get it back up is to pump it really hard all over again. That's how most of us lead our lives, in fits and starts. We get a new business venture going, and then we cut out on vacation. We start up a routine of making 10 prospecting calls a day, strike a little gold, and then shift into neutral. We get hopped up about our new date night routine with our spouse. But in a few weeks, it's back to Netflix and microwave popcorn on the couch Friday nights. I regularly see people buy a new book or sign up for a new program or seminar and go like crazy for a couple of weeks or even months. And then they stop and end up right back where they started. Does that sound familiar? Miss only a couple of weeks of anything, workouts at the gym, affectionate gestures towards your spouse, or the phone calls that are part of your prospecting routine, and you don't just lose the results those 2 weeks would have produced. If that's all you lost, which is what most people assume, not much damage would be done. But by slacking off, even for a short time, you've killed Mo. It's dead. And that's a tragedy. Winning the race is all about pace. Be the tortoise, the person who, given enough time, will beat virtually anybody in any competition as a result of positive habits and behaviors applied consistently. That'll put the mojo in your momentum and keep it there. Making the right choice, holding to the right behaviors, practicing perfect habits, staying consistent, and keeping your momentum is easier said than done, I know, especially in the dynamically changing and always challenging world we share with billions of people. In the next chapter, I will discuss the many influences that, mostly unknowingly, can help or hinder your ability to succeed. These influences are pervasive, persuasive, and constant. Learn how to use them or you might end up losing because of them. Let me show you how. Oh, and hey, homework alert. I would be remiss if I didn't remind you to once again go back to the book. Take a look at the summary action steps so that you can get the great tips offered there about how to take all this knowledge and implement it in your life. Chapter 5. Influences. Hopefully by now, you understand exactly how important your choices are. Even those that seem insignificant when compounded make an extreme impact on your life. We've also discussed the fact that you are 100% responsible for your life. You alone are responsible for the choices you make and the actions you take. That said, you must also realize your choices, behaviors, and habits are influenced by very powerful external forces. Most of us aren't aware of the subtle control these forces have on our lives. For you to sustain your positive trajectory towards your goals, you'll need to understand and govern these influences so they will support you rather than derail your journey towards success. Everyone is affected by 3 kinds of influences: input, what you feed your mind; associations, the people whom you spend time with; and environment, your surroundings. 1. Input. Garbage in, garbage out. If you want your body to run at peak performance, you've got to be vigilant about consuming the highest quality nutrients and avoiding tempting junk food. If you want your brain to perform at its peak, you've got to be even more vigilant about what you feed it. Are you feeding it news summaries or mind-numbing sitcoms? Are you reading the tabloids or Success magazine? Controlling the input has a direct and measurable impact on your productivity and outcomes. Controlling what our brains consume is especially difficult because so much of what we take in is unconscious. Although it's true that we can eat without thinking, it's easier to pay attention to what we put in our bodies because the food doesn't leap into our mouths. We need an extra level of vigilance to protect our brains from absorbing irrelevant, counterproductive, and downright destructive input. It's a never-ending battle to be selective and to stand guard against any information that can derail your creative potential. It's important to know that your brain was not designed to make you happy. Your brain has only one agenda in mind: survival. It is always watching for signs of lack and attack. Your brain is programmed to seek out the negative: dwindling resources, destructive weather, whatever's out to hurt you. So when you switch on that radio on the way to work and get bombarded with all those reports about robberies, fires, attacks, the tanking economy, your brain lights up. It now will spend all day chewing over that feast of fear, worry, and negativity. It's the same deal when you tune into the evening news after work. More bad news? Perfect. Your mind will stew on that all night long. Left to its own devices, your mind will traffic in the negative, worrisome, and fearful all day and night. We can't change our DNA, but we can change our behavior. We can teach our minds to look beyond lack and attack. How? We can protect and feed our mind. We can be disciplined and proactive about what we allow in. Don't drink dirty water. You get in life what you create. Expectation drives the creative process. What do you expect? You expect whatever it is that you're thinking about. Your thought process, the conversation in your head, is at the base of the results that you create in life. So the question is, what are you thinking about? What is influencing and directing your thoughts? The answer? Whatever you're allowing yourself to hear and see. This is the input you are feeding your brain, period. Your mind is like an empty glass. It will hold anything you put into it. You put in sensational news, salacious headlines, talk show rants, and you're pouring dirty water into your glass. If you've got dark, dismal, worrisome water in your glass, everything you create will be filtered through that muddy mess, because that's what you'll be thinking about. Garbage in, garbage out. All that drive time radio yak about murders, conspiracies, deaths, bad economy, and political battles drives your thinking process, which drives your expectations, which drives your creative output. That is bad news. Just like a dirty glass, if you flush it with clean, clear water under the faucet long enough, eventually you'll end up with a glass of pure, clear water. What is the clear water? Positive, inspirational, and supportive input and ideas. Stories of aspiration, people who, despite challenges, are overcoming obstacles and achieving great things. Strategies of success, prosperity, health, love, and joy. Ideas to create more abundance, to grow, expand, and become more. Examples and stories of what's good, right, and possible in the world. That's why we work so hard at Success Magazine. We want to provide you with those examples, those stories, and key takeaways that you can use to improve your view of the world, yourself, and the results you create. This is also why I read something inspirational and instructional for 30 minutes in the morning and evening, and have personal development CDs playing in my car. I am flushing my glass and feeding my mind. Does this give me an edge over the guy who gets up and first thing reads the newspaper, listens to news radio on his commute to and from work, and watches the evening news before going to bed? You bet it does, and it can for you too. Step 1. Stand guard. Unless you decide to hole up in a cave or on a desert island somewhere, you're going to get dirty water in your glass. It's going to be on billboards, on CNN while you're walking through the airport, on the screaming tabloid headlines at the checkout when you're buying groceries. Even your friends, family members, and your own negative mental tapes can flood dirty water into your glass. But that doesn't mean you can't take steps to limit your exposure to all that grime. Maybe you can't avoid the tabloids stacked up at the checkout register, but you can cancel your subscriptions. You can refuse to listen to the radio to and from work and instead put in an instructional and inspirational CD. You can cut off the evening news and talk to your loved ones instead. You can buy a DVR and record only those programs you feel are truly educational and life-affirming, and speed through the commercials aimed at making you feel inadequate or lacking unless you buy some more crap. Personally, I didn't really grow up with a TV. I remember watching Solid Gold and the A-Team, you remember them? But television wasn't really a big part of our family life. I managed somehow to thrive without it. And that's given me a clearer perspective when I do watch an occasional program now. Sure, I'll laugh along with a sitcom, but afterwards I feel the same as if I ate fast food, bloated and malnourished. And I can't get over how commercials prey on our psychology, our fears, pains, needs, and weaknesses. If I walk through my life thinking that I'm not enough just as I am, that I need to buy this, that, and the other thing to be okay, how can I expect to create amazing results? It's estimated that Americans 12 and older spend 1,704 hours watching TV per year. That averages out to 4.7 hours per day. We're spending almost 30% of our waking hours watching TV, almost 33 hours per week, more than one whole day each week. It's the equivalent of watching TV for 2 solid months out of every 12. Wow! And people wonder why they can't get ahead in life. Put yourself on a media diet. The media thrives on taking us hostage. Have you ever been stuck on the freeway with traffic backed up for miles, making you late, wondering what the heck is holding everything up? Sure enough, when you finally get close, you see that nothing physical was blocking the flow of cars. The wreck clearly happened a while ago and since has been moved to the side of the freeway. The 3-mile-an-hour crawl was caused by what? People rubbernecking. Now you're really irritated. But what happens when your car passes the wreck? You slow way down, take your eyes off the road in front of you, and crane your own neck. Why do good, decent people want to see something tragic or grotesque? It's our genetic heritage, going back to our prehistoric sense of self-preservation. We just can't help ourselves. Even if we're adept at avoiding negativity and have trained ourselves to be relentlessly positive, when it comes to sensationalism, our basic nature can't resist. Media masters understand this. They know your nature in many ways better than you. The media has always used shocking and sensational headlines to draw attention. But today, instead of just 3 TV and radio networks, there are hundreds running 24/7. Instead of just a few newspapers, there are endless portals reaching us from our computers to our phones. The competition for your attention has never been bloodier, and the media jockeys continually up the ante in shock value. They find a dozen or so of the most heinous, scandalous, criminal, murderous, bleak, and horrid things that happen in the world each day and parade them through our papers, news channels, on the web, over and over. Meanwhile, during that same 24-hour period, millions of wonderful, beautiful, incredible things happened. Yet we hear very little about them. In being wired to seek out the negative, we create the demand for more and more. How could the positive news stories ever hope to compete with those ratings or advertising dollars? Let's go back to our freeway. Instead of a wreck on the side of the road, what if there was the most stunning, miraculous sunset you've ever seen? What would happen to the traffic then? I've seen this many times. It just whizzes by at top speed. The great danger of the media is that it gives us a very perverted view of the world. Because the focus and the repetition of messaging is on the negative, that's what our minds start believing. This warped and narrow view of what's not working has a severe influence on your creative potential. It can be crippling. My personal junk filter. I'll share with you what I do to safeguard my mind. But I warn you, I have a rigorous mental diet. You'll want to adjust to your own preferences, but this is the system that has worked beautifully for me. As you might guess, I don't watch or listen to any news, and I don't read any newspapers or news magazines. 99% of all the news has no bearing on my personal life or personal goals, dreams, and ambitions in any way. I have set up a few RSS feeds identifying the news and industry updates that do pertain to my direct interests and goals. The news that's helpful to me gets plucked out of the fray so I don't have to get any mud slung into my glass of water. While most people wade through hours of irrelevant garbage that hampers their thinking and crushes their spirit, I get the most productive information I need when I need it in less than 15 minutes a day. Step 2. Enroll in Drive Time U. It's not enough to eliminate negative input. To move in a positive direction, you must flush out the bad and fill up on the good. My car will not move without two things: gasoline and an ever-present library of instructional CDs that I listen to as I drive. The average American drives about 12,000 miles a year. That's 300 hours of flushing potential right there. Brian Tracy taught me the concept of turning my car into a mobile classroom. He explained it to me this way: by listening to instructional CDs as I drive, I gain the knowledge equivalent to 2 semesters of an advanced college degree every year. Think about it. Using time you're currently wasting by listening to drive time radio, you could obtain the equivalent of a PhD in leadership, sales success, wealth building, relationship excellence, or whatever course you choose. This commitment, in combination with your reading routine, separates you from the herd of average, 1 CD, DVD, or book at a time. Influence number 2. Associations. Who is influencing you? Birds of a feather flock together. The people with whom you habitually associate are called your reference group. According to research by social psychologist Dr. David McClelland of Harvard, your reference group determines as much as 95% of your success or failure in life. Who do you spend the most time with? Who are the people you most admire? Are those two groups of people exactly the same? If not, why not? Jim Rohn taught that we become the combined average of the 5 people we hang around the most. Rohn would say, we can tell the quality of your health, attitude, and income by looking at the people around us. The people with whom we spend our time determine what conversations dominate our attention and to which attitudes and opinions we are regularly exposed. Eventually, we start to eat what they eat, talk like they talk, read what they read, think like they think, watch what they watch, treat people how they treat them, even dress like they dress. The funny thing is, more often than not, we are completely unaware of the similarities between us and our circle of 5. How are we unaware? Because your associations don't shove you in a direction, they only nudge you ever so slightly over time. Their influence is so subtle, it's like being on an inner tube out in the ocean, feeling like you're just floating in place until you look up and realize that the gentle current has pushed you half a mile down the shore. Think of your friends who order greasy appetizers or a cocktail before dinner, and that's their routine. Hang out with them long enough and you'll find yourself grabbing for cheese nachos and potato skins and joining them for that extra beer or glass of wine, matching their pace. Meanwhile, your other friends order healthy food and talk about the inspiring books they're reading and their ambitions in their business, and you begin to assimilate their behaviors and habits. You read and talk about what they talk about. You see the movies they're excited about. You go to the places they recommend. The influence your friends have over you is subtle and can be positive or negative. Either way, the impact is incredibly powerful. Watch out. You cannot hang out with negative people and expect to live a positive life. So, what is the combined average income, health, or attitudes of the 5 people you spend most of your time with? Does that answer frighten you? If so, the best way to increase your potential for whatever traits you desire is to spend the majority of your time with people who already possess those traits. You will then see the power of influence work for you, rather than against you. The behaviors and attitudes which help them acquire the success you admire will begin to become part of your daily routine. Hang around them long enough and you're likely to realize similar success outcomes in your life. Let me share with you how Kathy Ireland put it, whom, by the way, is an incredibly impressive entrepreneur who stepped out of modeling and created a $1.4 billion retail sales brand. She said it this way: do you surround yourself with anchors or engines? In life, there are engines who propel us forward, believe in us, and are supportive. And then there are the anchors who weigh everything down. It's important to stop and think, are you surrounding yourself with anchors or engines? Are you an anchor or an engine? Great advice, Kathy. So, if you haven't already, jot down the names of those 5 people you hang around the most. Also, write down their main characteristics, both positive and negative. It doesn't matter who they are. It could be your spouse, your brother, your neighbor, or your assistant. Now, average them out. What's their average health and bank balance? What's their average relationship like? As you look at the results, ask yourself, is this list okay for me? Is this where I want to go? It's time to reappraise and reprioritize the people you spend time with. These relationships can nurture you, starve you, or keep you stuck. Now that you've started to carefully consider with whom you spend your time, let's go a little deeper. As Jim Rohn taught me, it's powerful to evaluate and shift your associations into 3 categories: disassociations, limited associations, and expanded associations. All right, let's start with disassociations. You guard against the influences your children are exposed to and the people they hang around. You are aware of the influence these people have on your children and the choices they might make as a result. I believe the same principle should apply to you. You already know this. There are some people that you might need to break away from completely. This might not be an easy step to make, but it's essential. You have to make the hard choice not to let certain negative influences affect you anymore. Determine the quality of life that you want to have, and then surround yourself with the people who represent and support that vision. Personally, I am constantly weeding out of my life people who refuse to grow and live positively. Growing and changing your associations is a lifelong process. Some people might say that I'm even too rigorous about it, but I'd like to actually be more so. I had a business relationship with someone that I really liked, but when the economy got difficult, most of his conversation was forced on how horrible things were, how much his company was feeling the hit, and how hard it was out there. I said, man, you have got to stop working on your presentation about how bad life is. I can hear you collecting all the data points to reinforce your beliefs. He persisted in seeing everything as more dour and hopeless than it was, and I decided right then that we had no business doing business together anymore. When you make the tough decision to put up boundaries between you and people who drag you down, realize that they'll fight you, especially those closest to you. Your decision to live a more positive, goal-oriented life will be a mirror to their own poor choices. You will make them uncomfortable, and they will attempt to pull you back down to their level. Their resistance doesn't mean that they don't love you or want the best for you. It's actually not about you at all. It's about their fear and their guilt about their own poor choices and lack of discipline. Just know that breaking away won't be easy. Next, limited associations. There are some people that you can spend 3 hours with, but not 3 days. Others you can spend 3 minutes with, but not 3 hours. Always remember that the influence of associations is both powerful and subtle. The person you are walking with can determine whether you slow your pace or quicken it, literally and figuratively. Similarly, you can't help but be touched by the dominant attitudes, actions, and behaviors of the people with whom you spend time. Decide how much you can afford to be influenced based on how those people represent themselves. This is difficult, I know. I've had to do this myself on several occasions, even with close family members. But I will not, however, allow someone else's actions or attitudes to have a dampening influence on me. I've got a neighbor who's a 3-minute friend. For 3 minutes, we can have a great chit-chat, but we wouldn't mesh for 3 hours. I can hang out with an old high school friend for 3 hours, but he's not a 3-day guy. And then there are some people I can hang around for a few days, but wouldn't go on an extended vacation with. Take a look at your relationships and make sure you're not spending 3 hours with a 3-minute association. All right, now, expanded associations. We've just talked about weeding out the negative influencers, and while you're doing that, you'll also want to reach out. Identify people who have positive qualities in the areas of life where you want to improve. People with the financial and business success you desire, the parenting skills you want, the relationship you yearn for, the lifestyle you love, and then spend more time with them. Join organizations and businesses and health clubs where these people gather and make friends. Later in our journey, you'll see how I even used to drive to a different town to spend quality time with fortuitous results. But before we leave this section, I have to share a story with you told to me by our Success contributing editor, Don Yeager, who had the privilege of being mentored by the famous UCLA basketball coach, John Wooden. When Don was talking about key principles of success, Wooden corrected him on his priority of principles, emphasizing the importance of associations to one's success in life. John Wooden explained to Don his theory of 5. He told Don to take out a piece of paper and draw 2 lines down the page to create 3 columns. So try this for yourself. At the top of one column, write the 5 people you spend the most time with in your professional life, those that you go to lunch with, hang out with after work, play golf with, whatever. The second column, the 5 people you spend the most time with in your personal life, go out to dinner with, have over to the house, vacation with, etc. The third column is the 5 most influential acquaintances or partners in service, those that you associate with at church, service clubs, associations, what have you. Now, go down the list and assess each name. Is this person going where you're going? Does this person want what you want? Do you aspire to be like them? Do they share your dreams and reflect your morals and ethics? Will they help you get to where you want to be, either personally or professionally or in service? If so, strengthen that relationship and make sure that you are giving to them as much as you are getting. If not, strike them from the list and look to add new names in replacement. You cannot maintain connections with people that will hinder your ability to become great. That is great advice from someone who knows about fostering greatness. At thecompoundeffect.com/free, I'll provide you a worksheet that will help you accumulate and assess your association list. All right, back to the book. I rave about Jim Rohn throughout this book because aside from my father, Jim remains the foremost mentor and influencer in my life. My relationship with Jim perfectly exemplifies an expanded association. While I got to spend a few private meals and spend a little time with him during our interviews and backstage before events, most of my time with Jim was spent listening to him in my car or reading his words in my living room. I've spent more than 1,000 hours getting direct instruction from Jim, and 99% of that was through books and audio programs. What's exciting about this is no matter where you are in your life, maybe busy at home with small children or caretaking aging parents, working long hours with people with whom you have little in common, or living out in the country far from the nearest office building, you too have almost any mentor you want. If he or she has gathered their best thoughts, stories, and ideas into books, CDs, DVDs, and podcasts, you have an unlimited bounty from which to draw. Take advantage of it. Now, if you want to have a better, deeper, more meaningful relationship, ask yourself, who has the type of relationship that I want? How can I spend more time with that person? Who can I meet who can positively influence me? Let their glow rub off on you. Befriend the person you think is the biggest, baddest, most successful person in your field. What do they read? Where do they go for lunch? How can that association influence you? You can build these expanded associations by joining networking groups, Toastmasters, and similar organizations. Go out and find the charity organizations or symphony groups or country clubs where the people you want to emulate gather. Find a peak performance partner. Another way to increase your exposure to expanded associations is by teaming up with a peak performance partner, someone as equally committed to study and personal growth as you. This person should be someone you trust, someone bold enough to tell you what they really think about you, your attitudes, and your performance. It could be that this person is a longtime friend, but he or she may be someone who doesn't know you well at all. The point is to get and give an unbiased, honest, outside perspective. My current accountability partner is my good friend Landon Taylor. As mentioned before, we have a 30-minute call every Friday to discuss our weekly wins, losses, fixes, and ahas, and where we are on our growth plans. Just the anticipation of this call coming up on Friday and knowing that I have to be accountable to Landon keeps me extra committed throughout the week. I make a record of Landon's losses or any feedback that he needs and make sure to ask him about it the next week. He does the same for me. That way we hold each other accountable. He might say, "Okay, you screwed up here last week and admitted it and committed to change. What did you do about it this week?" Life is life. We're both busy executives, but it's amazing to me that we actually end up doing this every week without fail. It's not easy. Sometimes I'll be flying through my day and think, "Oh, crud, I have to do this." But often in the middle of the call, I think, "I'm so glad we're having this conversation." Even in preparing for it and thinking of my big wins or losses for the week, I learn about myself. Recently, I told Landon, I'm in the middle of so many things. I'm writing my book. I'm having lots of realizations, so many ahas, but not one thing is really compelling. He said, "Let this be the last week you don't come to the table with an aha." Don't shortchange me, he said. Point taken. In reality, I was also shortchanging myself by not identifying one thing memorable enough to share. All right, I have a real challenge for you, if you're up to it. You want real feedback? Find people who care enough about you who will be honest with you when you ask them this. How do I show up to you? What are my strengths? Where can I improve? Where do you think I sabotage myself? What's the one thing I could stop doing that would benefit me the most? Ask those questions, get real feedback, and that will be the seed of great growth. Invest in mentorship. As you've already heard, Paul J. Meyer is another man who served as a mentor to me. Paul passed away in 2009 at age 81. Whenever I thought I was really doing things, really playing at a high level, I'd get around Paul. He was always my reality check. What he did before lunch was mind-boggling to me. I got to spend a lot of time with him. Paul bought one of my companies, and I did a turnaround for one of his companies. He was a very powerful spirit in my life. After spending a couple of hours with Paul, hearing about all his plans and ventures and activities, my head would spin. Just trying to make sense of all he had going on exhausted me. After time with Paul, I'd want to go and take a nap, but my association with him raised my game. His walking pace was my running pace. It expanded my ideas about how big I could play and how ambitious I could be. You have to get around people like that. You're never too good for a mentor. During my interview with Harvey Mackay, he told me, "I have 20 coaches, if you can believe it. I have a speech coach, I have a writing coach, I have a humor coach, I've got a language coach, and on and on." I have always found it interesting that the most successful people, the truly top performers, are the ones willing to hire and pay for the best coaches and trainers there are. It pays to invest in your improved performance. Finding and engaging a mentor doesn't have to be a mysterious or intimidating process either. When I sat down with Ken Blanchard, he explained the simplicity of engaging a mentor. He said, "The first thing you want to remember with a mentor is that it doesn't need to take a lot of their time. The best advice I've ever gotten is in short clips, having lunch or breakfast with somebody, just telling them what I was working on and asking their advice and all. You will be amazed how successful business people are willing to be mentors to people when it's not taking a lot of their time." John Wooden reinforced the point that others desire to be mentors. He said, "Mentoring is your true legacy. It's the greatest inheritance you can give to others, and it should never end. It's why you get up every day, to teach and to be taught." He went on to explain that mentorship is also a two-way street. An individual needs to be open to being mentored. It's our responsibility to be willing to allow our lives and our minds to be touched, molded, and strengthened by the people who surround us. Develop your own personal board of advisors. As part of my plan to be wiser, more strategic, and operate more effectively, as well as to expand the time and interaction that I have with high-minded leaders, I've been developing a board of advisors in my personal life. I've hand-selected a dozen people because of their areas of expertise, creative thinking ability, and/or my great respect for who they are. Once a week, I reach out to a few of them and solicit ideas, run thoughts by them, and ask for feedback and input. Having started this process, I can tell you the benefits I've already received have been profound, far more than I anticipated. It's surprising the genius people are willing to share when you show sincere interest. So, who should be on your personal board of advisors? Seek out positive people who have achieved the success you want to create in your own life. Remember this adage, never ask advice of someone with whom you wouldn't want to trade places. Influence number 3, environment. Changing your view changes your perspective. When I was in real estate, working in the East Bay of San Francisco, I lived and worked within a very limited demographic. I saw the same kinds of people operating at the same level over and over. I knew that I needed to find an elevated circle of associations in order to go where I wanted to go. I started driving across the bay to one of the richest and most beautiful spots on the planet, Tiburon in Marin County, north of San Francisco. If you've ever been to Monaco, that's what Tiburon looks like, but far quainter. It's a spectacular spot. I would go to a delightful seafood restaurant called Sam's on the Wharf. The food was great, but more importantly, the restaurant was popular with the area's most affluent residents. Aside from going to Sam's to expand my associations, I'd also sit on the wharf and look up at the hillside. I was mesmerized by the multi-million-dollar houses that just hung off the cliffs. One in particular always caught my eye, a blue 4-story home with an elevator and a whale lightning rod at the top. While I sat there and looked up at this hillside, I used to ask myself all the time, which would be the perfect house? If someone could just give me one of them, which one would I pick? The answer was always the same, this big, beautiful blue one. It was in the perfect spot with a bright vista, the best of the bunch. On my way home from brunch one morning, I saw an open house sign and thought it would be fun to check it out. One sign led to another as I followed them zigzagging up the cliffs along the narrow streets. I finally reached the top of the hill and found the advertised home. As I entered and walked up to a spectacular bay window, the world opened up in front of me. From the peninsula tip of Tiburon, Angel Island across the bay, Berkeley and the East Bay, the Bay Bridge, and the entire San Francisco skyline over to the Golden Gate Bridge in a 300-degree expanse. I walked out onto the balcony and looked around. Suddenly, I realized that this was the very house I had been looking at for years. This was the blue house. I signed the contract on the spot. My dream house was now mine. I can't really say that I met anybody at Sam's who changed my life. However, that environment had a powerful effect on me. Seeing those homes on the cliffs fueled my ambition and expanded my dreams. I ended up working harder than I ever thought possible to make those dreams come true. And they did. The dream in your heart may be bigger than the environment in which you find yourself. Sometimes you have to get out of that environment to see that dream fulfilled. It's like planting an oak sapling in a pot. Once it becomes root-bound, its growth is limited. It needs a great space to become a mighty oak. So do you. When I talk about your environment, I'm not just referring to where you live. I'm referring to whatever surrounds you. Creating a positive environment to support your success means clearing out all the clutter in your life. Not just the physical clutter that makes it hard for you to work productively and efficiently, although that's important too, but also the psychic clutter of whatever around you isn't working, whatever's broken, whatever makes you cringe. Each and every incomplete thing in your life exerts a draining force on you, sucking the energy of accomplishment and success right out of you as surely as a vampire stealing your blood. Every incomplete promise, commitment, and agreement saps your strength because it blocks your momentum and inhibits your ability to move forward. Incomplete tasks keep calling you back to the past to take care of them. So think about what you can complete today. Additionally, when you're creating an environment to support your goals, remember that you get in life what you tolerate. This is true in every area of your life, particularly within your relationships with family, friends, and colleagues. What you have decided to tolerate is also reflected in the situations and circumstances of your life right now. Put another way, you will get in life what you accept and expect you are worthy of. If you tolerate disrespect, you will be disrespected. If you tolerate people being late and making you wait, people will show up late for you. If you tolerate being underpaid and overworked, that will continue for you. If you tolerate your body being overweight, tired, and perpetually sick, it will be. It is amazing how life will organize around the standards you set for yourself. Some people think that they are victims of other people's behavior, but in actuality, we have control over how people treat us. Be sure to protect your emotional, mental, and physical space so you can live with peace, rather than in the chaos and stress the world will hurl upon you. Okay, I have to arc off here and share with you one of the greatest secrets to the success of the multi-billion-dollar producer Paul J. Meyer. He revealed it in one of our recorded interviews. Here's what he said verbatim. I'm kind of what you would call an inverted paranoid. I just believe everybody in the world is out to get me and out to help me do whatever I want to do. I think everybody wants to be my partner. Everybody wants to be my customer. When I walk up to a door, I visualize a big red carpet rolled out and 2 trumpeters standing on each side, and the person inside is wanting to do business with me because he not only wants to buy from me, he wants to be my friend. You know, there is an amazing power in positive expectancy, and I saw this mindset played out in Paul's life over and over again. I have used this model for my own life with equally stunning results. I recommend it to you. Okay, back to the text. If you want to foster a disciplined routine of rhythms and consistency so that Big Mo not only pays a visit to your house, but moves in, you have to be sure your environment is welcoming and supportive of you becoming, doing, and performing at world-class levels. So, while we're on the topic of world-class, in the next chapter, I want to help you take everything you've learned thus far and give you the secret to now accelerating your results. Getting greater results with only a little more effort may feel a little like cheating. It certainly is an unfair advantage. But who said life was fair? But hey, before you move on, be sure to go back to the book, look at the summary action steps, and apply those principles into your life so that you can get the results you desire. Chapter 6. Acceleration. When I lived in La Jolla, California, for exercise and a test of will, I would regularly bike the 2 miles straight up Mount Soledad. There are very few things you can do voluntarily that cause more pain and suffering than riding a bike up a steep mountain without stopping. There's a point at which you hit the wall and come face to face with your true inner character. Suddenly, all the projections and ideas you had about yourself are stripped away and you're left with the naked truth. Your mind starts inventing all sorts of convenient alibis on why it's okay to stop. It is then when you are faced with one of life's greatest questions. Do you push through the pain and continue on, or will you crack like a walnut and give up? Lance Armstrong was the success cover feature in our June 2009 issue. I remember watching Lance during his first Tour de France victory. The Tour had entered the grueling mountain stages of the race. The other riders dismissed Lance because he'd never been a renowned climber. During the third mountain ascent through the freezing rains, mist, and then hail, Lance got separated from his team. He was left fighting the top climbers in the world alone. On the final ascent, 18 miles straight up the mountain, after 5.5 hours of climbing, every rider was suffering. Each needed to search the depths of his stamina and self-definition. Could they endure? It became a test of who could survive the hardships and find the strength to keep going. Who would crack and who wouldn't? With just 5 miles to go, Lance was 32 seconds behind the leaders, an eternity while climbing a mountain on a bike. During a curve, Lance stood up and surged ahead until he caught up to the 2 leaders, both established world-class climbers. Having expended almost everything he had in him, Lance then launched an attack and gained several lengths on the leaders. He later said in his book, It's Not About the Bike, My Journey Back to Life, when you open up a gap and your competitors don't respond, it tells you something. They're hurting. And when they're hurting, that's when you can take them. Completely exhausted, struggling to breathe, his legs and arms burning with fatigue, Lance kept pounding on the pedals. Some tried, but no one could catch him. They just didn't have it in them. At the finish line, with fists pumping in the air, the unexpected contender won the stage race and then ultimately won the Tour de France. In this chapter, I want to talk to you about those moments of truth and how the compound effect can help you break through to new and greater levels of success faster than you ever imagined possible. When you've prepared, practiced, studied, and consistently put in the required effort, sooner or later, you'll be presented with your own moment of truth. In that moment, you will define who you are and who you are becoming. It is in those moments where growth and improvement live, when we either step forward or shrink back, when we climb to the top of the podium and seize the medal, or we continue to applaud sullenly from the crowd for others' victories. We'll also look at how you can consistently deliver more than people expect, compounding your good fortune even further. Moments of truth. Lance said in his autobiography this, "There is a point in every race when a rider encounters his real opponent and understands that it's himself." He said, "In my most painful moments on the bike, I am at my most curious and wonder each and every time how I will respond. Will I discover my innermost weakness or will I seek out my innermost strength?" When I was in real estate, I would hit the wall several times a day. While driving to an expired listing property after just getting pummeled by the last prospect, I'd start conjuring up all sorts of excuses to skip the sales call and head back to the office. While out canvassing a neighborhood, dogs would snarl at me, or it looked like it might start to rain. I'd be in the midst of money time, that's 5 to 9 p.m., cold calling, and frequently get chewed out for interrupting somebody's dinner or favorite TV show. I was sure at that point that I needed to take a break or go to the bathroom or get a glass of water. But instead of quitting, every time I hit one of those mental and emotional walls, I would recognize that my competitors were facing the same challenges. I knew that this was another moment that if I kept going, I would be strides ahead of them. These were the defining moments of success and progress. It wasn't difficult, painful, or challenging when I was just running with the herd, just keeping up, but not really getting ahead. It's not getting to the wall that counts, it's what you do after you hit it. Lou Holtz, the famous football coach, knew it was what you did after you did your best that created victories. In one game, his team was down 42-0 at halftime. During the halftime break, Lou showed his team a dramatic highlight reel of second efforts to block, tackle, and recover the ball. He then told the players that they were not on his team because they could give their all on every play. Every player on every team does that. He said they were on his team because of their ability to make that critical extra effort on each play. It's the extra effort after you've done your best that is the difference maker. His team went on to win that game in the second half. That is how you win. Muhammad Ali was one of the greatest fighters of all time, not only because of his speed and agility, but because of his strategy. On October 30th, 1974, Ali regained his heavyweight championship, beating George Foreman in one of the biggest upsets in boxing history in the Rumble in the Jungle. Almost no one, not even Ali's longtime supporter Howard Cosell, believed the former champion had a chance of winning. Both Joe Frazier and Ken Norton had beaten Ali previously, and George Foreman had knocked both of them out only in the second round. Ali's strategy? To take advantage of the younger champion's weakness, his lack of staying power. Ali knew that if he could get Foreman to his wall, he could then take the advantage. This is when Ali came up with the tactic later termed rope-a-dope. Ali would lean on the ropes, shielding his face, while Foreman threw hundreds of punches over 7 rounds. By the 8th round, Foreman was exhausted. He was at his wall. It was then that Ali dropped Foreman with a combination at center ring. Hitting the wall isn't an obstacle, it's an opportunity. During Lance Armstrong's second attempt at winning the Tour de France, it was once again time to head into the mountains. The first big climb would be where Lance had experienced a devastating crash earlier that same year, giving him a concussion and breaking his 7th lumbar vertebra during a wet day in the spring. Now, during race time, it was raining yet again. Instead of being concerned or hesitant, here's what Lance said: "This is perfect attacking weather, mainly because I know the other riders don't like it. I believe that nobody in the world is better at suffering than me. It's a good day for me." And he was right. Lance brought home his second victory. When conditions are great, and things are easy, and there aren't any distractions, no one's interrupting, temptations aren't luring, and nothing is disturbing your stride, that too is when most everyone else does great. It's not until situations are difficult, when problems come up and temptation is great, that you get to prove your worthiness for progress. As Jim Rohn would say, don't wish it were easier, wish you were better. When you hit the wall in your disciplines, routines, rhythms, and consistency, realize that is when you are separating yourself from your old self, scaling that wall, and finding your new, powerful, triumphant, and victorious self. Multiplying your results. I have an exciting opportunity for you. We've talked about how the simple disciplines and behaviors will compound over time, delivering amazingly powerful results for you. But what if you could speed up the process and multiply your results? Would you be interested? I want to show you how just a little bit more effort can add exponentially to your outcomes. Let's say that you're weight training and your program calls for you to do 12 repetitions of a certain weight. Now, if you do the 12, you're fulfilling the expectations of your program. Great job. Stay consistent and ultimately you will see this discipline compound into powerful results for you. Yet, if you get to 12, and even if you've hit your max and you push out another 3 to 5 reps, the impact on that set will be multiplied several times. You won't just add a few reps to the aggregate of your workout. No, those reps done after you hit your max will multiply your results. You've just pushed through the wall of your maximum. The previous reps just got you there. The real growth happens with what you do after you hit the wall. Arnold Schwarzenegger made famous a weight training method called the cheating principle. Arnold was a stickler for perfect technique. He contended that once you reached your maximum number of lifts in perfect form, adjusting your wrists or leaning back a little bit to recruit other muscles to assist the working muscles, cheating a little, would allow you to do 5 or 6 more reps, which would significantly improve the results of that set. You can also achieve this by having a workout partner who assists in those last few reps you couldn't have done on your own. If you're a runner, you know this experience. You get to the goal that you set for yourself that day and you're feeling the burn. You're at your wall, but you go a little farther, a little longer. This little longer is really a massive expansion of your limits. You have multiplied the results of that single run. Take the magic penny we talked about in Chapter 1, the one that doubles in value each day, showing you the result of small compounded actions. If you just doubled that penny one extra time per week during the 31 days, the compounded penny would result in 171 million instead of just 10 million. Again, just a little extra effort in 4 days out of 31, and the result was many times greater. That's how the math of doing just a little bit more than expected works. Viewing yourself as your toughest competitor is one of the best ways to multiply your results. Go above and beyond when you hit the wall. Another way to multiply your results is pushing past what other people expect of you, doing more than enough. Beat the expectations. Oprah is famous for using this principle, blasting beyond anyone's expectations with her generosity and ability to live and work in a big way. Do you remember how she launched her 19th season in September of 2004? When it comes to Oprah, we know to expect some fanfare, but she blew everyone away. That season opener was all the media or anyone else talked about for days afterwards. Let's go back in time for a minute. The audience members were selected because their friends and family members had written in saying how each of them desperately needed a new car. Oprah opened the show by calling 11 people to the stage. She gave every one of them a car, a 2005 Pontiac G6. Then, the real surprise. She surpassed everyone's expectations when she distributed gift boxes to the rest of the audience, saying one of the boxes contained a key to the 12th car. But when the audience members opened their boxes, every one of them had a set of keys, and she screamed, "Everybody gets a car! Everybody gets a car!" While this might be her most famous example, Oprah continues to go beyond her expectations in most everything she does. In other segments of that same season opener, Oprah surprised a 21-year-old girl who had spent years in foster care and homeless shelters with a 4-year college scholarship, a makeover, and $10,000 in clothes. And she gave a family with 8 foster children who were going to be kicked out of their house $130,000 to pay for and repair their home. Now, you might be saying, yeah, but she's Oprah. Of course she can do those things. But the truth is, there are plenty of others in Oprah's position with the finances and the fame who could do those things, but never venture out into the realm of extraordinary. Oprah does. And that's what makes her Oprah. Take a lesson from her. You can do more than expected in every aspect of your life. Now, this is a small example, but when it was time to propose to my wife, Georgia, I could have done what was expected and met with her father to ask for his daughter's hand in marriage. Instead, I decided to pay great respect to her father by preparing my speech in Portuguese. I got Georgia's sister to translate what I wanted to say. He understood English well enough, but wasn't entirely comfortable with it. All the way up to Los Angeles from San Diego, I was rehearsing the words. I walked through the door, carrying flowers and treats, and asked for her dad to join us in the living room. I then delivered my prepared speech, and thankfully, he said yes. But I didn't stop there. On the way back and over the next couple of days, I called each of her 5 brothers and asked for their blessing to join the family. Some were easy to convince, others proceeded to have me earn it. The point is, she told me later that one of the most special aspects about how I proposed was how I had honored her dad and how I'd called every one of her brothers and had her sister teach me Portuguese. That made the act extra special. The result of that extra effort paid off exponentially. Stuart Johnson owns the parent company to Success, Video Plus. Stuart put a lot of money and a 22-year reputation on the line when he decided to acquire Success Magazine, Success.com, and the other properties of Success Media. During one of the most challenging economies in recent history, and as print publishing was being seen as unfavorable, the move in itself was bold and audacious. But then he did even more than what could be expected. While the new business enterprise was still finding its legs, translation, still operating in the red, and his primary business was taking a couple of steps backwards like the rest of the world during the economic tsunami of 2008 and 2009, Stuart launched a nonprofit foundation dedicated to kids. If he was going to make a commitment to helping teach the fundamentals of personal development to the world, he wanted to be especially sure the information would reach teenagers. So he launched the Success Foundation. He had the fundamental principles of personal achievement compiled into a book called Success for Teens and is distributing it for free through responsible distribution partners and nonprofit organizations to help nurture young minds. Stuart personally funded the administration and management of the Success Foundation, and for the first year, with the help of a few good friends, he funded the distribution of more than 1 million books. Today, that number is far greater and growing. Now, Stuart was already in for a heavy investment and big risk without the burdens of funding the new foundation. But the additional contribution and dedication to the foundation multiplied the statement of his commitment several-fold to his partners, to the press, to peers, and to his own staff. He was doing far more than expected, and it spoke volumes. So, where in life can you do more than expected when you hit the wall? Or when can you go for wow? It really doesn't take a lot more effort, but the little extra multiplies your results many times over. Whether you're making calls or serving customers, recognizing your team, acknowledging your spouse, going for a run, bench pressing, planning a date night, sharing time with your kids, whatever. What's the little extra that you can add that exceeds expectations and accelerates your results? Do the unexpected. I'm a contrarian by nature, I know. Tell me what everyone else does, what's the consensus, and what's popular, and I will typically do the opposite. If everyone is zigging, I'm going to zag. To me, what's popular is average. It's what's common. Common things deliver common results. Let's keep in mind, the most popular restaurant in America is McDonald's. The most popular drink, Coca-Cola. The most popular beer, Budweiser. The most popular wine, Franzia. Yeah, that stuff that comes in a box. Consume those popular things and you'll now be part of the common, average pack. But that's ordinary. There's nothing wrong with being ordinary. I just prefer to shoot for extraordinary. Let me give you a small for instance. Everyone sends Christmas cards, but since everyone does it, it doesn't really have much emotional impact, in my opinion. So I choose to send Thanksgiving cards instead. How many Thanksgiving cards do you get? Exactly. It makes a statement. And instead of bulk printed, computer generated, best wishes cards, I handwrite personal sentiments expressing how grateful I am for my relationship with that person and what he or she means to me. Same effort, but a much greater impact. One of my favorite characters, Sir Richard Branson, built his career on doing the unexpected. I love to watch the guy launch a new company. Every stunt is bolder, scarier, and more unexpected than the last. Whether it's flying a hot air balloon around the globe or driving a tank down Fifth Avenue in New York City to introduce Virgin Cola to the United States, Richard always delivers the unexpected. Now, he could get by with the expected press release, a press conference or two, and some swanky party and call it a day. But instead, he goes for the astonishing. He probably spends as much money, and sometimes probably less, than other companies to launch a product. He just does it in unexpected style. The wow factor makes a statement and multiplies the impact of his efforts. More often than not, the extra effort doesn't cost that much more money or energy. When I was selling real estate, everyone else would call on expired listings when they came up. Instead, I got in my car and showed up on their doorstep and hand-delivered a sold sign. Take this, I'd say when they opened the door. You'll need it if you hire me to take over this listing. For the price it took to keep my gas tank full, I immediately and exponentially increased my chance of getting the listing. Recently, Alex, a friend of mine, was up for a big job. He lives in California and the job was in Boston. He was one of the final 12 candidates. They were going to interview the local candidates in person and those out of the area via video conferencing. He called me asking if I knew how to facilitate a webcam video conference. I asked him, "How badly do you want this job?" He said, "It's my dream job. It's everything I've spent 45 years preparing to do." "Then get on a plane and show up in person," I said. "No need," Alex said. "They'll be flying in the final 3 for the last interview." "Listen," I told him, "if you want to be in that final 3, you should separate yourself by doing the unexpected. Fly across the country on a moment's notice and show up in person. That's how you make a statement." If I set my sights on something, I'm going to ensure success by going all in and all out. I launch what I call shock and awe campaigns. During this same job hunt, I suggested to Alex that he pull out all the stops, attack from every possible front, and do it relentlessly. Research all the decision makers, I told him, find out their interests, hobbies, their kids' hobbies, spouses' hobbies, neighbors' hobbies, etc. Send them books, articles, gifts, and other resources you think they might like. Is that over the top? Heck yes, that's the point. They'll know you're trying to butter them up, but they'll appreciate your gumption and creativity. You'll certainly get their attention and most likely their respect. Then I continued, Research all the people in the organization. Take that list and run it by your entire network to see if they know anyone who might know someone in this organization. Search every name against your LinkedIn database. Find a few people to connect with. Talk with them and ask them to put in a good word for you. Send them gifts, notes, and other things, and ask them to hand deliver these things to the decision makers. Phone, email, fax, text, tweet, Facebook them during the process. Could this be overly aggressive? Again, heck yes, but I have found that you may lose 1 out of 5 for being too aggressive, but guess what? You get the other 4. By the way, Alex did not take my advice, and he did not get the job. He didn't even get into the final 3. I can unequivocally say he was a far better choice than the person the organization ultimately hired, but Alex failed to make an impression, and it cost him his dream job. I sit on the board of a company that needed a congressman to sign off on a piece of legislation that affected whether this company could move forward on an important project. This guy wasn't budging, not because of the actual issue, but because of a political axe he was grinding against others who publicly favored the issue. Instead of making any more futile appeals to sway him, I suggested that we go above his head and talk to his boss, his wife. We went through our network until one person led us to someone who was friends with his wife. Then we waited for her outside following a church service that she attended, and her friend introduced us. We explained our important case and cause, which was to build an after-school facility in an impoverished neighborhood that would affect the lives of hundreds of children if her husband would just support it. Needless to say, he signed on by Tuesday that following week, and the company got its project. In our attention deficit, propaganda-saturated society, sometimes doing the unexpected is required to get your voice heard. If you have a cause or ideal worthy of attention, do what it takes, even the unexpected, to make your case heard. Add a little audacity to your repertoire. Doing better than expected. Invisible Children, another nonprofit for which I'm a board member, helps rescue and recuperate children who have been abducted and made soldiers in northern Uganda and the Congo. To gain awareness for their cause, they staged a 100-city event called The Rescue, where more than 800,000 young people camped outside until prominent leaders of the community came to rescue them, thus gaining their attention and support. After 4 days, all but one city had been rescued, having people like U.S. Senator Ted Kennedy and John Kerry, Val Kilmer, Kristen Bell, and many others show up in 99 other cities. The last city to get rescued was Chicago, and it required Oprah. After 6 days, Oprah was a no-show. On the 4th day, they organized a march and went round and round her studio. The next day, they put up a singing and dancing presentation that went on all day, all night. Then on the 6th day, having endured harsh weather and sleeping in the rain, the more than 500 participants surrounded her studio and stood in silence, holding signs starting at 3:30 a.m. That morning, Oprah walked out the doors of Harpo Studios and spoke with the organization's founders and invited the entire group to participate in a live broadcast segment that morning to her more than 20 million viewers. That attention got Invisible Children on Larry King Live and 232 other news outlets to reach a total of more than 65 million people. A bill is currently moving through Congress supporting Invisible Children's effort to save these children. The organization had already pulled off more than expected with the rescue event, but the little extra gumption and steadfastness to capture that last city and the attention of Oprah gained Invisible Children its biggest advocate to date, multiplying its results many times over. So here's the lesson for you. Find the line of expectation and then exceed it, even when it comes to the small stuff, or maybe especially then. Whatever I think the dress standard is going to be for any event, for example, I always choose to go at least one step above it. When I am unsure of the attire, I always err on the side of dressing better than I suppose the occasion calls for. Simple, I know, but just one way I try to meet my standard to always do and be better than expected. When I do keynotes for large companies, I spend a considerable amount of time preparing, learning about their organization, products, markets, and their expectations for my talk. My goal is to always significantly surpass what they expect, and I do this through tireless preparation. Doing better than expected becomes a big part of your reputation. Your reputation for excellence multiplies your results in the marketplace many times over. I did some work with a CEO once whose philosophy was to pay people, including his vendors and suppliers, a few days in advance of the contract commitment. I was always blown away when I received a check on the 27th of the month from him for next month's payment. When I asked him about it, he said, "It's obvious. It's the same money, but the surprise and goodwill it will buy is immeasurable. Why wouldn't you?" This is also one of the reasons why I admire Steve Jobs so much. Of all the sensational people we've featured on the cover of Success, Jobs is one of my favorites. Whatever your expectations are about the next Apple product launch, Jobs always has a little, or a lot of, something extra to wow you. In the grand scheme of things, it might only be a minor addition, but even so, it's better than expected and multiplies the impression and response from his customers and deepens their loyalty. In a world where most things don't meet expectations, you can significantly accelerate your results and stand out from the pack by doing better than expected. I like the boldness of what Robert Schuller told us in his success feature. He said, "I say no idea is worthwhile if it doesn't start with wow." Nordstrom is famous for this standard. When it comes to customer service, they always strive to do better than expected. Nordstrom has been known to take back an item a customer bought more than a year ago without receipt, and in some cases, purchased at a different store. Now, why would they do that? Because they know exceeding expectations builds trust and creates customer loyalty. As a result, they've developed an extraordinary reputation that continues to attract attention. After all, I'm reminding you of it here. The multiplier keeps growing. Now, I challenge you to adopt these philosophies in your own life, in your own daily habits, disciplines, and routines. Giving a little more time, energy, or thought to your efforts won't just improve your results, it will multiply them. It takes very little extra to be extraordinary. So, in all areas of your life, look for the multiplier opportunities where you can go a little further, push yourself a little harder, last a little longer, prepare a little better, and deliver a little bit more. Where can you do better and more than expected? When can you do the totally unexpected? Find as many opportunities for wow, and the level and speed of your accomplishments will astonish you and everyone else around you. And before we conclude, one last reminder to go back to the book and implement the action steps from Chapter 6 into your life. And in conclusion, as we talked about before, learning without execution is useless. I didn't write this book for my own amusement. Hey, this is hard work. Or even simply to just motivate you. Motivation without action leads to self-delusion. As I said in the introduction, the compound effect and the results it will manifest in your life are the real deal. Never again will you wish and hope that success will find you. The compound effect is a tool that, when combined with consistent, positive action, will make a real and lasting difference in your life. Let this book and the audio and its philosophy become your guide. Let the ideas and strategies sink in and produce genuine, tangible, and measurable outcomes for you. Whenever you realize small, seemingly innocuous poor habits have crept back into your life, take out this book. Whenever you fall off the wagon of consistency, take out this book. Whenever you want to reignite your motivation and bolster your why power, take out this book. Every time you read this book or listen to this audio, it entices Big Mo to pay a visit to your life. Let me jump off the text here for just a moment as we go through the concluding information. I wrote a blog post last year that stated how we needed to learn less, but study more. The conundrum I think we find ourselves in, especially if you have found your way to this book, Read Success, or my blog, or personal development materials, is learning is not what we lack. In fact, it might be what's bottlenecking us. Beyond CDs, DVDs, and books, we also live in an age of e-zines, blogs, RSS feeds, personalized readers, Dig, Facebook, Twitter. We have a never-ending flow of ideas, tips, quotes, suggestions, and advice being continually pumped at us. We are swimming in a sea of infinite information. We paddle like crazy just to keep our nose above water, and it can be exhausting, right? We read an article and then we move on to the next. We listen to an audio and then seek out the next one. We finish a book and then start the next. Therein lies the problem. We are always reading a lot, seemingly learning a lot, but never really stopping long enough to digest, contemplate, act, review, and improve on anything we've just learned. As you know, knowledge is not power. It is the potential of power. What you do with knowledge is where the power lies. Never before have we had a society filled with so many knowledgeable failures. We do not lack for knowledge. It is everywhere, and most of it is entirely free. The problem is we expect to use all the ideas and get overwhelmed, thus becoming mentally paralyzed and are unable to act on anything. What we lack is real growth, improvement, and development. You can mistake reading and keeping up with the action as improvement. So learning is not the problem. The lack of study and implementation is. Please don't just read this book and put it down or listen to this audio and move on. Read it, listen to this, summarize the key ideas, and then write out how you're going to implement those ideas into your life. Now act, review, and improve. Act again, review, and improve until those ideas have effective results in your life. I suggest a study and growth plan under these time parameters. First is 21 days. Pick a new discipline, behavior, or habit you want to form, and then commit to it for a minimum of 21 days. 21 days is a short enough period of time to give you hope of completion and long enough to form a new habit. I also suggest that you only work on 1 or 2 new habits and disciplines at a time. That's a minimum of 17 new disciplines and habits that you can form over a period of an entire year. That will revolutionize your life. Think about it, 17 new disciplines and habits by next year. It has been said that we are 1 or 2 habits away from a major transformation. Imagine 17 of them. Second, 90 days. Pick a theme of growth to work on and then commit to it for 90 days. In Mastering the Rockefeller Habits, Vern Harnish talks about having a quarterly theme for your business. I think you should do that for your life as well. This could be a get fit theme or magical marriage or servant leader or dinner time dad, whatever significant improvement you'd like to make in your life, focus on it for a 90-day stretch. The next time chunk, 3 years. With focused and concerted study, I have found that it takes about 3 years to get good at anything you set out to improve. Our microwave, instant results expectation falsifies what it really takes for true transformational growth and improvement. One of the most important skills and attitudes you can develop is patience. Give yourself a break. Don't expect to be an overnight sensation. There's no such thing. Stick with your growth plan. It will pay huge dividends in the end. And lastly, 5 to 7 years. This is the time that it takes to develop mastery. You can master most any skill, quality, or attribute if you study, practice, review, and improve over a 5 to 7 year period of time. You could become world class at most anything, but it takes focused study. All right, back to the book. Let me share with you what motivates me. My core value in life is significance. My desire is to make a positive difference in other people's lives. So to accomplish my goals, I need you to accomplish your goals. It's your testimony of life-changing results that I'm after. I want to receive your email or letter or have you stop me in the airport next year or 5 or 10 years from now to tell me about the incredible results you've realized because of the ideas you've gained from this book. Only then will I have accomplished my goals, my objectives, that I'm living up to my core values in life. Now, for you to get those results and me my testimonial, I know you have to take immediate action on your new insights and knowledge. Ideas uninvested are wasted. I don't want that to happen. It's now time to act on your new convictions. You now have the power, and I expect you to seize it. You are ready to make dramatic improvements, right? Of course, the obvious answer is yes. But you know by now that saying you're ready to make the necessary changes and actually making them isn't the same thing. To get different results, you're going to have to do things differently. No matter where you are or what year it is when you find this book, if I could, I'd ask you these simple questions. Look back on your life 5 years ago. Are you now where you thought you'd be 5 years later? Have you kicked the bad habits you vowed to kick? Are you in the shape you wanted to be? Do you have the cushy income, the enviable lifestyle, and the personal freedom you expected? Do you have the vibrant health, abundant loving relationships, and world-class skills you intended to have by this point in your life? If not, why? It's simple. Choices. It's time to make a new choice. Choose not to let the next 5 years be a continuum of the last. Choose to change your life once and for all. Let's make the next 5 years of your life fantastically different than the last 5. My hope is that you've now removed your blinders. You know the truth about what it takes to earn success. You've got no more excuses. Like me, you too will refuse to be fooled by the latest gimmick or become distracted by quick fix enticements. You will stay focused on the simple but profound disciplines that will lead you in the direction of your desires. You know that success isn't easy or overnight. You understand that when you're committed to making moment-to-moment positive choices, despite the lack of visible or instant results, the compound effect will catapult you to new heights that will astound you, bewilder your friends, family, and your competition. When you hold true to your why power and stay consistent with your new behaviors and habits, momentum will carry you swiftly forward. And then, together with that momentum and consistent positive action, it will be impossible for the next 5 years to be more of the same. On the contrary, when you put the compound effect to work for you, you will experience a success I'm willing to bet you currently can't even imagine. It will be incredible. I have one more valuable success principle to pass along to you. Whatever I want in life, I've found the best way to get it is to focus my energy on giving it to others. If I want to boost my confidence, I look for ways to help someone else feel more confident. If I want to feel more hopeful, positive, and inspired, I try to infuse that in someone else's day. If I want more success for myself, the fastest way to get it is to go about helping someone else obtain it. The ripple effect of helping others and giving generously of your time and energy is that you become the biggest beneficiary of your personal philanthropy. As the first simple and small step I'd like you to take in improving the trajectory of your life, I ask you to try this philosophy in your own life. If you've found value in this book, if it's helped you in any way, consider giving a copy to 5 people whom you care about and want greater success for. The recipients could be relatives, friends, team members, vendors, your favorite local small business owner, or someone you just met that you'd like to make a marked difference in their life. I know this sounds like it benefits me. It does. Remember, I'm after success testimonials. My goal is to make a difference in millions of people's lives. But to do that, I need your help. But I promise you this, ultimately, it will be you who benefits the most. Your helping someone else find the ideas to gain greater success is the first step towards you exercising them in your own life. At the same time, you could make a marked difference in the life of someone else. This book could forever alter the course of someone else's life, and it could be you who gives it to them. Without you, they might not ever find it. So, write down the 5 people you will give a copy of this book or audiobook to. And thank you for joining me in helping make a difference in the lives of others, practicing the compound effect. I'd like to extend my appreciation and thanks to my team at Success Media and Success Magazine, who supported me through this labor of blood, sweat, and almost tears, particularly my good friends and colleagues, Reed Bilbray and Stuart Johnson. To my writing muse and collaborator, Linda Sievertson, who helped pull out the stories and references from my past and give my process order and coherence. To the editing wizardry of Aaron Casey and the always genius touch of our Success Magazine editor, Lisa Acker, and to our editor-in-chief, Deborah Heiss. And to my oh-so-patient audio producer, Richard Del Maestro, who put up with my wild antics while recording this audiobook and made sure that I delivered at my highest possible level for you every step of the way. To the many brilliant personal development experts that I've worked with and learned from over the past 2 decades, all the CEOs, revolutionary entrepreneurs, and extraordinary achievers I've had the chance to interview and glean new insights, ideas, and wisdom from. To all the readers of Success Magazine, my blog, and my other works, whose enthusiastic and appreciative feedback inspires me to want to continue to pursue the zenith of my potential so I can better assist others to find theirs. And to my beautiful and wonderful wife, Georgia, who sacrificed many late nights and weekends without me while I worked to complete this book. And to you, for honoring me with your time and attention, and for joining me on this incredible journey. Now, let's go do something extraordinary. I hope you've enjoyed this audiobook and that you'll commit to using the ideas you've heard here to dramatically improve your life. Also, be sure to access the free resources available on thecompoundeffect.com to plan your path and chart your progress. Remember, the compound effect isn't about taking huge strides or unimaginable leaps. It's about consistently completing the right actions time and time again. Do that, and I know you'll create the life of your dreams. And remember, when you achieve that success, send me your letter. Maybe soon we'll be sharing your success story.
We hope you enjoyed this audiobook from Success Books. Thank you for listening. To learn more about Darren Hardy and to access free resources available with this program, visit thecompoundeffect.com/free. This recording of The Compound Effect, Multiplying Your Success One Simple Step at a Time, was read by Darren Hardy. It is published by Success Books, an imprint of Success Media. Darren Hardy was recorded and edited by Richard Del Maestro. The sequencing, mixing, and mastering of this CD was done by DB Audio Services in Dallas, Texas. Copyright 2010 by Success Media.